What would you do if saving a stranger's life cost you everything? Dr. Nia Adesina never imagined that one blood donation would chain her to Seoul's most dangerous man. When she saves Mafia heir Ryu Min-ha from death, a viral lie transforms her into his fiancé overnight. His father, the Dragon of Seoul, offers her a devil's bargain. Marry his son for 3 months, and her dying mother lives. But Min-ha wakes with amnesia, believing the lie is real, and his obsession becomes her prison. As fake vows turn into real passion, Nia discovers that love in the underworld doesn't ask permission. It takes. When he learns the truth, will their bond survive? Or will blood be the only thing left between them? This is Blood Oath, bound by fate, where love is the most dangerous contract of all. Subscribe now and don't miss a single heartbeat of this forbidden romance. The fluorescent lights of Seoul National University Hospital burned into Dr. Nia Adesina's retinas as she sprinted down the corridor, her white coat billowing behind her. Blood stained her scrubs from the previous surgery, and exhaustion weighed on her shoulders like iron chains, but she didn't slow down. She couldn't. Not when a life hung in the balance. O negative! We need O negative now! Dr. Park's voice cracked through the chaos of the emergency room. The trauma bay exploded with motion as nurses scrambled, monitors screamed, and somewhere beneath all that noise, a man was dying. Nia burst through the doors, her eyes immediately locking onto the gurney where a figure lay surrounded by a hurricane of medical personnel. Blood pooled on the floor, dark and viscous. Too much blood. 3 gunshot wounds, the paramedic had said. Chest, abdomen, shoulder. Critical condition. Minutes to live. The blood bank is empty, a nurse gasped, her face pale. We've called 3 other hospitals. Nothing. 20 minutes minimum. He doesn't have 20 minutes, Dr. Park snapped, his hands pressing desperately against the wounds. He doesn't have 5. Nia's heart hammered against her ribs as she processed the scene. The patient's face was partially obscured by an oxygen mask, but she could see enough. High cheekbones, pale skin growing paler, lips tinged blue. Young, maybe her age. Dying. Dr. Adesina. The head nurse grabbed her arm, and Nia recognized the look in her eyes. That terrible, desperate look that meant someone had to make an impossible choice. You're O negative. You donated last year during the staff drive. It's in your file. The room seemed to tilt. Nia had worked a 16-hour shift. She'd eaten 1 protein bar for lunch. Her body was already running on fumes, held together by coffee and sheer willpower. Direct donation in these conditions was dangerous, possibly reckless. She looked at the dying man again. His chest barely rose with each artificial breath. Prep me, Nia said, rolling up her sleeve. Dr. Adesina, you're exhausted. If you donate now, prep me. Her voice cut through the protests like a scalpel. Now. 5 minutes later, Nia lay on a gurney beside the patient, her arm extended, watching her blood flow through a tube into his body. The needle pinch had barely registered. She was too focused on his monitors, watching his blood pressure tick upward with agonizing slowness. 1 unit. 2. The red liquid carried her life force directly into his veins, a transfusion of fate. His pressures stabilizing, someone announced, and a collective exhale swept through the room. Nia's vision blurred at the edges. The ceiling lights became halos, too bright and too distant. She felt the pull of unconsciousness like a riptide, but she kept her eyes locked on the monitor. His heartbeat grew stronger, steady, regular. That's enough, the nurse said, moving to disconnect her. No. Nia's voice sounded far away, even to herself. He needs more. Give him another unit. Dr. Adesina, you'll pass out. Then catch me. The world swam. Nia felt her blood leaving her body, felt herself becoming lighter, untethered. But she watched his color return, watched life flow back into his features. For just a moment, his eyes fluttered open behind the oxygen mask, dark and unfocused, and seemed to find her across the narrow space between their gurneys. Then, everything went black. When Nia woke, She was in a recovery room with an IV in her arm, and her sister Tari's voice echoing in her mind from their last phone call. "Mama's getting worse. The doctors say if we don't get the money for surgery soon." She pushed the memory away and tried to sit up, but her head spun viciously. "Easy," a nurse said, appearing at her side. "You donated almost 3 units. You need to rest." "The patient?" "In surgery. You saved his life, Dr. Adesina. He would have died without you." Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by a wave of dizziness so intense she had to close her eyes. She'd saved him. That was what mattered. One life, saved. In a world where she couldn't save her own mother, at least she'd saved someone. The nurse's radio crackled. Nia heard fragments of conversation, words that made no sense in her foggy state. Identity confirmed. Ryu Minha. Oh God, if he'd died. "Who is he?" Nia asked, her tongue thick in her mouth. The nurse's face had gone white. She didn't answer. Instead, she hurried from the room, leaving Nia alone with her confusion and the steady drip of saline replenishing her depleted veins. Hours later, after she'd been cleared to return to duty against every instinct of self-preservation, Nia discovered why the nurse had looked so terrified. The hospital was in chaos. Security guards flanked every entrance. Men in black suits occupied the surgical waiting area. And the whispers had started, spreading through the staff like wildfire. The Ryu family. The dragon's son. Mafia. Nia's blood turned cold. She grabbed Dr. Kim's arm as he rushed past. "Who is the patient from the shooting?" Dr. Kim looked at her with something between pity and fear. "Ryu Minha, son of Ryu Hwanseok. You really don't know who that is?" She shook her head, dread pooling in her stomach. "The most powerful crime family in Seoul, and you just gave your blood to the heir." Before Nia could process this information, the elevator doors at the end of the hall opened, and the air pressure seemed to change. Men in expensive suits emerged first, moving with military precision. Then came a figure that made every person in the corridor instinctively step back. Ryu Hwan-seok was not a tall man, but he commanded space like a black hole commands light. Everything bent toward him. His suit was immaculate charcoal gray, his silver hair swept back from a face carved from stone and calculation. When his eyes swept the hallway, people looked away as if his gaze could burn. "Where is my son?" His voice was quiet, controlled, and absolutely terrifying. The hospital director materialized, bowing so low his spine seemed to fold. "This way, Mr. Ryu. He's just out of surgery. The doctors say—" "I want to see him. Now." They moved toward the ICU, and Nia pressed herself against the wall, trying to be invisible. But invisibility was a luxury she no longer possessed. One of Ryu Hwan-seok's men noticed her, leaned in to whisper something. The dragon's eyes found her across the corridor. He stopped walking. The entire procession halted with him. "You," he said, and the single word carried the weight of judgment. "You're the doctor who donated blood." It wasn't a question. Nia forced herself to stand straight, to meet his gaze, even as her instincts screamed at her to run. "Yes, sir. Come with me. I need to check on my patients." That wasn't a request. Nia found herself walking beside men who could kill her without consequence, following a monster in a business suit toward an ICU room where another monster lay recovering with her blood in his veins. The reality of what she'd done hit her with delayed force. She'd saved a criminal, a mafia heir, someone whose hands were probably stained with blood of a different kind. The ICU was private, isolated, guarded. Through the window, Nia could see him, Ryu Minha. Without the oxygen mask, she could finally see his face clearly. He was beautiful in the way dangerous things are beautiful, sharp angles, full lips, skin like porcelain now that her blood had restored his color. Even unconscious, he looked like he could hurt you. "Will he live?" Ryu Hwan-seok asked the surgeon. "Yes. Thanks to Dr. Adesina's quick thinking, we were able to stabilize him in time. The bullets were removed successfully. Barring complications, he should make a full recovery. The dragon turned to Nia, and for a long moment, he simply studied her. She felt dissected under that gaze, every secret laid bare. You saved my son's life. I'm a doctor. That's my job. Your job is to treat patients. You gave your own blood. You could have died. So could he. Something flickered in Ryu Hwanseok's eyes. Not warmth. Nothing so human as that. More like recognition. Like he'd found an unexpected piece on a chessboard he thought he knew. What's your name? Dr. Nia Adesina. Adesina. Nigerian? Yes, sir. How long have you been in Korea? 3 years. Family? Nia hesitated. Something told her that any information she gave this man would be weaponized eventually, but lying seemed more dangerous than truth. My mother and sister are in Abuja. My mother is sick. Cancer. Ryu Hwanseok nodded slowly, processing this. Then he did something that made every person in the room tense. He bowed. Not deeply, but enough to shock. Thank you for saving my son, Dr. Adesina. The Ryu family does not forget debts. Before she could respond, he swept from the room, taking his entourage with him. Nia was left standing beside the surgeon, her heart pounding, wondering what she'd just been thanked for and whether it was actually a threat disguised as gratitude. You should go home, Dr. Adesina, the surgeon said quietly, and maybe take a few days off. Things are going to get complicated. He had no idea how prophetic those words would be. Nia returned to her tiny apartment near the hospital just before dawn. She was too wired to sleep, too shaken by the events of the night. She pulled out her phone and called Tari, needing to hear her sister's voice, needing to remember why she was in Seoul working herself to death. Nia. Oh God, I've been trying to call you. Mama collapsed again. The doctors say we need to schedule the surgery immediately or... Tari's voice broke. I don't know what to do. The money. We don't have... How much? Nia interrupted, her chest tight. 150 million. The full surgery, recovery, everything. Nia, where are we going to get that kind of money? 150 million. About $115,000 USD. It might as well have been $1 billion. Nia had been sending every spare one to her family for 3 years, barely keeping herself fed. Her debt was staggering. Her savings were non-existent. I'll figure it out, Nia said, her voice hollow. I promise, Tari. I'll figure it out. She ended the call and sat in the dark, staring at nothing. How did you save someone when you were drowning yourself? How did you choose between your mother's life and your own survival? She didn't have answers. So she did what she always did. She pushed the fear down, the hopelessness aside, and prepared for another shift. The hospital needed her. Patients needed her. And somehow, some way, she would find the money. She had to. But as she stepped into the shower, letting hot water wash away blood and exhaustion, Nia didn't know that her life had already changed irrevocably, didn't know that giving her blood to Ryu Min-ha had bound her to him in ways that would destroy and remake her. Didn't know that in 48 hours, a video would go viral that would make her famous, hunted, and trapped in a web she couldn't escape. The water ran red at her feet, spiraling down the drain. Like fate. Like blood. Like everything she was about to lose. 2 days later, Nia was in the middle of suturing a laceration when her phone exploded with notifications. One after another, her screen lit up with messages, tags, alerts. She ignored them, focused on her patient, but the nurse assisting her gasped. Dr. Adesina, you need to see this. I'm working. You really need to see this. Something in the nurse's voice made Nia look up. The woman's face was sheet white, her eyes wide with shock and something that looked like fear. Nia quickly finished the suture, cleaned up, and checked her phone in the hallway. The first thing she saw was her own face. The video was grainy, clearly taken on someone's phone, but the scene was unmistakable. The hospital corridor. Ryu Hwanseok and his entourage. And Nia, standing straight, meeting the dragon's eyes without flinching. The audio was muffled, but you could hear fragments of their conversation. "You saved my son's life. I'm a doctor, that's my job." The video cut off there, but the caption made Nia's blood freeze. Ryu Minha's fiancée stands up to the dragon. The woman who saved the Mafia heir's life is revealed to be his secret girlfriend. Dash, Ryu Minha, Isha, Mafia. Romance. True love. Fiancé. Girlfriend. Secret romance. The video had 17 million views. 17 million. No. Nia whispered, scrolling through comment after comment. People were obsessed. They were shipping them, creating fan art, analyzing every frame of the video for proof of their relationship. The narrative had taken on a life of its own, the brave doctor who loved the dangerous heir, who'd risked everything to save him, who'd stood up to his terrifying father. None of it was true. But truth didn't matter when fiction was this compelling. Nia's hands shook as she called up more videos. The story had spread to news outlets. Entertainment shows were analyzing her body language. Reporters were camped outside the hospital. Her full name, her background, everything was being dissected by millions of strangers. Dr. Adesina, the hospital director's assistant, appeared, looking grim. "The director needs to see you immediately." The walk to the director's office felt like a funeral march. Nia knew what was coming. The hospital couldn't afford this attention, this association with the Ryu family. She was about to be fired, and with her work visa tied to her employment, she'd be deported. Her mother would die. Tari would be alone. 3 years of sacrifice for nothing. But when she entered the director's office, Ryu Hwanseok was sitting in the guest chair. Nia stopped dead. The dragon smiled, and it was the most terrifying smile she'd ever seen. Not cruel. Worse. Satisfied. "Dr. Adesina," the director said, his voice tight. "Mr. Ryu has been explaining the situation to me." "What situation?" Nia managed, though her throat felt like sandpaper. Ryu Hwanseok stood, moving with predatory grace. "The video has created an interesting opportunity. You see, the Ryu family has been facing some public relations challenges lately. Police investigations, negative press. But this video has changed the narrative. Suddenly, we're not monsters. We're romantic. My son is humanized, and the public loves you." "I don't understand." "Our stock prices rose 12% today. Business partnerships that were hesitating are now eager to work with us. The mayor, who'd been discussing crackdowns, called to offer congratulations on Minha's engagement. All because people believe you love my son." Nia's stomach dropped. "But I don't. I've never even spoken to him." "I know, which is why we're going to make it true." The room spun. "Excuse me?" Ryu Hwanseok pulled a document from his briefcase and placed it on the director's desk. "A contract. You will act as Minha's fiancé for 3 months. You'll move into his home, appear at public events, sell the love story. In exchange, I will pay you $500 million. The number hung in the air like a bomb. $500 million. More than 3 times what her mother needed. Enough to save her, give Tari security, wipe out Nia's debts. "And if I refuse?" Nia asked, though she already knew the answer. "Then I'll make sure you never work as a doctor again. In Korea, Nigeria, or anywhere else. Your visa will be revoked. Your family will lose their home in Abuja. I believe your mother's condition is quite serious. Tragic, if she couldn't afford treatment." There it was, the threat wrapped in silk. Nia looked at the director, hoping for support, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. No help was coming. She was alone with a monster making her an offer she couldn't refuse. "Why me?" she asked. "Why not just deny the rumors?" "Because my son woke up yesterday," Ryu Hwanseok said, and something in his voice made her look at him sharply. "And when we told him about the video, about you, he has amnesia from the head trauma. He doesn't remember the last year. But when he saw your face, he smiled. He believes you're his fiancée, Dr. Adesina, and for the first time since the shooting, he has a reason to live. The words hit like a physical blow. You want me to lie to him, to let him believe. I want you to save him again. His memories may return or they may not. Either way, 3 months. That's all I'm asking. Play the role. Let him recover. Let the family benefit from this miracle of public opinion. Then you'll get your money, and you can disappear back to your life. Nia looked at the contract, looked at the number, thought of her mother's labored breathing, Tari's desperate phone calls, the weight of debt crushing her chest every single day. 3 months. Pretend to love a stranger. Let him believe a lie. Sell her soul to save her family. Her hand shook as she reached for the pen. One condition, she said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. You pay half up front, today. My mother needs surgery immediately. Ryu Hwanseok's smile widened. Done. She signed her name on the line. The moment the ink dried, she felt the chains lock around her wrists, invisible but absolute. She'd entered the dragon's lair willingly, and there would be no easy way out. Welcome to the family, Dr. Adesina, Ryu Hwanseok said, and the words sounded like a eulogy. That evening, $250 million appeared in Nia's account. She stared at the number through tears, then immediately transferred $150 million to her family. When Tari called, sobbing with relief and disbelief, Nia couldn't tell her the truth. She said the hospital had given her a huge bonus, that everything would be okay now. She was getting very good at lying. The next morning, Nia was escorted to Ryu Minha's penthouse in Gangnam. The building was obscenely luxurious, all steel and glass and silent elevators that moved like whispers. Her apartment could fit in his entryway. The wealth on display wasn't just impressive, it was violent, a demonstration of power that made her feel insignificant. He's been asking for you, the house manager said, a severe woman named Mrs. Cho. Every hour since he woke, you should know that Minha isn't easy. His temper is unpredictable. He's dangerous even to people he cares about. Be careful. Wonderful, Nia thought. She was about to pretend to be engaged to a violent amnesiac criminal. This would definitely not end badly. Mrs. Cho opened a door and Nia stepped into a bedroom that was all shadows and expensive furniture. He was sitting by the window, backlit by Seoul's glittering skyline, and for a moment, she couldn't breathe. Ryu Minha was beautiful in the daylight the way a blade is beautiful. Sharp. Dangerous. Perfect. He wore a black silk robe despite the afternoon hour, his hair falling across his forehead, and when he turned to look at her, his eyes were so dark they seemed endless. Nia, he said, and his voice was rough, unused. They said you were coming. They said you saved me. She swallowed hard, reminding herself to play the role. Yes, I'm so glad you're okay. He stood, and she realized he was tall, much taller than she'd thought when he was unconscious. He moved toward her slowly, like he was approaching something precious and breakable. I don't remember you. They told me about my amnesia. But I feel... He stopped an arm's length away. I feel like I should remember. Like you matter. You had a head injury, Nia said carefully. It's normal to... Come closer. It wasn't a request. Nia forced herself to close the distance between them, and suddenly he was right there, his breath warm on her face, his presence overwhelming. He raised one hand and she flinched despite herself. He noticed. His eyes darkened further. Are you afraid of me? No. Yes. Terrified. You're lying. He traced one finger along her jaw and she felt electricity spark under her skin. I can always tell when people are lying, but I don't know if I can tell with you. That's interesting. His touch was gentle, curious, but Nia could feel the leashed violence in him, the sense that he could go from soft to lethal in a heartbeat. This was a man who'd been shot 3 times and survived, who was being groomed to run a criminal empire, who could probably kill her without losing sleep. And she was supposed to convince him she loved him. The doctor said you need to rest, Nia said, stepping back carefully. I should let you. No. His hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Not painful, but absolute. Don't leave. I've been alone in this room for 2 days with strangers telling me stories about my life. You're the only thing that feels real. Min-ha. Tell me about us. How we met. When I proposed. Everything. I need to know. Panic clawed at her throat. She hadn't prepared for this. Hadn't created a backstory. She looked into his desperate eyes and realized that this man was drowning, clinging to the idea of her like a life raft, and she was supposed to be his salvation. So she did what she did best. She improvised. She lied. And she prayed he wouldn't remember the truth. We met at a hospital charity event 6 months ago, she said softly. You were there with your father. I was working the donor registration table. You made a joke about needles being scarier than bullets, and I laughed because it was absurd and terrible. You asked for my number. I said no 3 times before you wore me down. He listened like she was reciting scripture, his thumb unconsciously stroking the inside of her wrist. And I proposed? 2 months ago, on a bridge over the Han River at midnight. You said you'd never believed in fate until you met me. You said I made you want to be better than what your family expected. It was pure fiction, romantic and tragic and utterly false. But Min-ha's eyes shone with something that looked like hope, and Nia felt her heart twist with guilt and something dangerously close to compassion. Did I tell you I loved you? He whispered. Every day. He pulled her closer, and suddenly she was against his chest, feeling his heartbeat, strong and steady, powered by her blood. Say it back. What? Say you love me. I need to hear it. Nia's pulse thundered in her ears. This was the moment, the point of no return. She could refuse, break the illusion, face whatever consequences Ryu Hwan-seok would rain down on her. Or she could sell her soul completely, speak the lie that would bind her to this dangerous man. She thought of her mother, Tari, the money already transferred, the surgery being scheduled. She looked up at Ryu Min-ha and said, I love you. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't tentative. He kissed her like he was drowning and she was oxygen, his hand tangling in her hair, his body pressing her back against the wall. Nia gasped against his mouth, and he swallowed the sound, kissing her deeper, harder, like he was trying to remember her through taste and touch alone. She should have pushed him away, should have maintained professional distance. But her traitorous body responded, her hands gripping his shoulders, her lips parting under his, and for one terrible moment she forgot it was fake. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. His eyes were wild, unfocused. I don't remember you, he said roughly, but my body does. My blood does. What did you do to me, Nia? I saved your life, she whispered. No. He pressed his forehead to hers, and the intimacy of it was more devastating than the kiss. You did something worse. You made me need you. That night, Nia lay in the guest bedroom 3 doors down from his, staring at the ceiling and wondering what she'd gotten herself into. This was supposed to be simple. 3 months of pretending. Playing a role, collecting a paycheck and walking away. But nothing about Ryu Min-ha was simple. He was intense, possessive, unpredictable. And despite her better judgment, despite knowing he was a criminal and this was all a lie, she couldn't stop thinking about the desperate hope in his eyes when she'd said she loved him. She touched her lips, still feeling the ghost of his kiss. This was going to be so much harder than she'd imagined. And she had no idea that it was about to get infinitely worse. The next 3 weeks blurred into a surreal existence. Nia moved through Min-ha's world like a ghost in someone else's life. By day, she accompanied him to doctor's appointments, smiled for cameras at charity events, played the devoted fiancée at family dinners where Ryu Hwan-seok watched her like a scientist observing an experiment. By night, she retreated to her separate bedroom, maintaining the boundaries she desperately needed. Min-ha didn't push. He seemed content just having her near, watching her with those fathomless eyes, occasionally reaching for her hand like he needed to confirm she was real. But cracks were forming in her careful facade, because Minha, despite his violence and danger, was not what she'd expected. He was intelligent, sharply observant, and unexpectedly vulnerable in private moments. He'd wake from nightmares and knock on her door, asking if he could just sit in her room until the demons faded. He'd cook breakfast with shocking domesticity, telling her stories about his childhood before everything became about the family business. And worst of all, he looked at her like she was his entire world. "Tell me something true," he said one evening as they sat on his balcony, soul spread beneath them like a field of stars. "Something you've never told anyone." Nia's heart stuttered. "Why?" "Because I can't remember who I was. I'm trying to learn who I am now. And you're the only person who doesn't feel like a stranger." He turned to her, and the naked honesty in his face was crushing. "When everyone else is in the room, I feel like I'm wearing someone else's skin. But with you, I can breathe. So tell me something true, Nia. Help me know you're real." She should have lied, should have maintained the distance, but something in her broke under the weight of his loneliness, and the truth spilled out. "I'm terrified all the time. I'm terrified I'm not good enough, that I'll fail, that everything I love will slip through my fingers. I work myself to death because if I stop moving, I'll remember how scared I am." Minha reached over and laced his fingers through hers. "Then don't stop moving. I'll move with you." It was in that moment that Nia realized she was in serious trouble, because she was starting to care about this broken, dangerous man, starting to wish the lie was real, and that was a betrayal of everything, the contract, his trust, her own survival. But fate, as Nia was learning, had a cruel sense of humor. The next morning, she woke to shouting. She rushed from her room to find Minha in the living room, his face white with rage, holding his phone. On the screen was a woman. Beautiful, elegant, furious. "Who is she?" The woman was screaming through the video call. "Who is this foreign nobody you've replaced me with?" "Mirin," Minha said, his voice cold in a way Nia had never heard. "We're done. I've told you." "Done? Done. You think you can throw away 3 years because of some hospital whore? Your father will never allow this. I'm your fiancée, Minha. Me, not her." Nia's blood ran cold. Another fiancé. Of course, she'd been so focused on the amnesia, on playing her role, that she hadn't thought about his actual life before the shooting, about the woman he might have actually loved. Minha's eyes found her across the room, and something in his expression shattered. "You're not her," he said to Mirin, but he was looking at Nia. "You were never her." He ended the call and threw his phone across the room, where it shattered against the wall. The violence of the action made Nia flinch, and he saw it, saw her fear and hated himself for it. "That was Han Mirin," he said flatly. "Apparently, we were engaged before the shooting. My father arranged it. I don't remember her. I don't remember loving her. But she remembers me." "Did you love her?" Nia asked, not sure she wanted the answer. "I don't know, but I know I love you now." He crossed to her, cupping her face with shaking hands. "Tell me that's real. Tell me we're real." She couldn't. The words stuck in her throat, trapped behind the enormity of the lie. Because in that moment, looking at his desperate, trusting face, Nia realized she'd done something unforgivable. She'd made him fall in love with a ghost, with a version of herself that only existed in this penthouse prison. "We're real," she whispered, and added another sin to her growing collection. But Mirin's appearance had opened a door that couldn't be closed. Over the next week, Minha grew obsessed with recovering his memories. He consulted specialists, tried hypnotherapy, pushed himself to remember what he'd lost. And Nia watched in growing terror, knowing that if he remembered the truth, her world would end. The explosion came on a Tuesday evening. Minha had been in his study all day, going through old files and documents. Nia was in the kitchen helping Mrs. Cho prepare dinner when she heard the crash. She ran to the study and found him standing in the wreckage of his desk, papers scattered everywhere, his chest heaving with barely controlled rage. In his hand was a document, the contract. "What?" he said, his voice terribly soft. "Is this?" Nia couldn't speak, couldn't move. She watched him read the terms, saw his face transform from confusion to betrayal to something that looked like grief. 3 months, he read aloud. W 500 million. The party of the second part agrees to act as fiancé to Ryu Minha for a period of 3 months, maintaining the public fiction that their relationship is genuine. He looked up, and his eyes were dead. Fiction. It was all fiction. Minha, don't. He threw the contract at her feet. "Don't say my name like you care. Don't you dare. Tell me the truth. All of it. Now." So she did. Standing in the ruins of his trust, Nia told him everything. The viral video, his father's threat, her dying mother, the money, the lie, every terrible, necessary choice that had led them to this moment. When she finished, Minha was utterly still. "You made me fall in love with you for money." "No, I made you fall in love with a lie. But somewhere along the way," she took a shaking breath, "I started falling too." "Liar," he spat. "You're so good at lying. Did you practice your expressions in the mirror? The way you looked at me like I mattered? The way you said you loved me? I do love you. Stop!" He grabbed a lamp and hurled it across the room, and Nia stumbled backward, finally genuinely afraid. This was the violence everyone had warned her about, the monster beneath the man. "You don't get to say that. You don't get to pretend anymore." "I'm not pretending," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I know I lied. I know I'm terrible. But what I feel for you now is real. Minha, please. Get out." "What?" "Get out of my house. Get out of my life. I never want to see you again." His voice cracked, and that was somehow worse than the shouting. "You were supposed to save me. Instead, you killed the only part of me that still felt human." Nia reached for him, but he jerked away like her touch burned. "Minha, listen to me." "I said get out." She ran, grabbed her bag, her phone, nothing else. She ran from the penthouse, from the life she'd built on lies, from the man she'd destroyed. Security didn't stop her. Mrs. Cho looked away as she passed. Everyone knew. The fairy tale was over. Nia made it to the street before she collapsed against a building, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. She'd known this moment would come, had prepared herself for it. But nothing could have prepared her for the look in Minha's eyes when he realized she'd manipulated him, used his amnesia, made him love a phantom. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You have 24 hours to leave Korea. If you're still here tomorrow, you'll regret it. Han Mi-rin." Another buzz. A bank notification. The remaining W 250 million had been transferred. Blood money. The full payment for services rendered. Contract terminated early. Nia stared at the numbers through tears and felt nothing. She'd sold her soul to save her mother, and the price had been higher than she'd ever imagined. Because she'd fallen in love with the man she'd betrayed, and now she had to live with that. She went back to her old apartment, the tiny space she'd kept just in case. It felt like visiting a tomb. The life of Dr. Nia Adesina before everything went wrong. She sat in the dark and called Tari. "Nia, Mama's surgery went perfectly. She's recovering so well, the doctors say she'll be home in 2 weeks. It's a miracle. How can we ever thank you?" Tari's joy was sunshine, and it burned. "I'm glad," Nia said, her voice hollow. "I have to go, Tari. I love you." She hung up before her sister could hear her crying. At least one good thing had come from this disaster. Her mother would live. Tari would be safe. The sacrifice had been worth it, even if it had cost her everything. Nia spent the night packing, preparing to leave Korea forever. She'd book a flight to Nigeria tomorrow, disappear, try to rebuild a life from the ashes. She'd done what she came to do. There was nothing left for her here. At 3 a.m. her phone rang. Mrs. Cho's number. Dr. Adesina. The older woman's voice was tight with fear. You need to come back. Now. I can't. He doesn't want... He's gone. After you left, he took his car and disappeared. We've been searching all night. His phone is off. Dr. Adesina, he's not stable. The amnesia, the betrayal, his mental state. I'm afraid of what he might do. Ice flooded Nia's veins. What do you mean? Do you think he'd hurt himself? I think, Mrs. Cho said carefully, that Min-ha has never learned how to handle pain except by destroying things. Usually other people. Sometimes himself. And you were the only thing holding him together. Nia was already grabbing her coat. Where would he go? Does he have a place he goes when he's upset? There's a bridge. Mapo Bridge. His mother. Mrs. Cho's voice broke. His mother jumped from there when he was 16. He goes there sometimes. Dr. Adesina, please hurry. The call ended. Nia ran into the street, flagging down a taxi with desperate urgency. Mapo Bridge, fast, please. The driver must have seen something in her face because he didn't ask questions, just drove. Soul blurred past, neon and darkness, and Nia prayed to every god she'd ever heard of. Don't let him do this. Please. I'll do anything. Just don't let him do this. The bridge came into view and her heart stopped. There was a figure standing on the railing, silhouetted against the Han River below. Even from a distance she recognized him. Min-ha! She threw money at the driver and ran, her feet pounding against concrete, her lungs burning. Min-ha! He turned, and she could see his face now, tear-streaked, empty, the face of a man with nothing left to lose. Don't come closer, he said, his voice carrying across the space between them. Behind him, the river waited, black and hungry. Nia stopped 20 feet away, her hands raised like she was approaching a wild animal. Other people had noticed now, pulling out phones, calling police, but she only had eyes for him. Please come down, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. We can talk. Whatever you're feeling, we can work through it. You lied to me. His voice was conversational, almost pleasant, which was terrifying. You made me believe I was loved. Do you know what that's like? To have amnesia? To wake up not knowing who you are, what you've done, whether you're good or evil, and then someone looks at you like you matter, like you're worth saving, and suddenly you have a reason to exist. You are worth saving. I'm a monster. The scream tore from him. I've killed people, Nia. I remembered today. Sitting in that study, reading those contracts. It all came back. Every terrible thing I've done, every life I've destroyed. My father was right to mold me into this. I'm exactly what he made me. And for 3 weeks, I got to pretend I was someone else. Someone who deserved a good woman's love. But that was a lie too. It wasn't a lie, Nia said, taking a careful step forward. Yes, I started pretending. Yes, I took money to play a role. But Min-ha, what I feel for you now is real. The way you make me laugh. The way you can't cook to save your life but try anyway. The way you hold me when you have nightmares like I'm your anchor. That's real. You don't love me. You love the amnesia version. The broken, pathetic version who needed you. I love all of you, she said, and meant it. The broken parts and the monster parts and the parts that make me scared. I love you because you're trying. Because in a world that told you to be cruel, you chose to be gentle with me. Because when you remembered who you were, instead of becoming that person again, you wanted to die rather than hurt anyone else. That doesn't make me good. That makes me a coward. That makes you human. Nia took another step. The police had arrived now, setting up barriers, but they weren't approaching. Too risky. She was on her own. Min-ha, you asked me to tell you something true. Here's the truth. I'm terrified right now. Not of you. Of losing you. Of living the rest of my life knowing I caused you this pain. If you jump, I'll never forgive myself. I'll carry it forever. Good, he said bitterly. Then you'll know how I feel. Then let me know how you feel by staying alive. She was 10 feet away now, close enough to see the tremors in his body, the way his fingers gripped the railing like it was the only thing between him and the void. Let me spend the rest of my life making up for what I did. Let me prove that what we have is real. There is no we. There never was. You're wrong. 5 feet. We are blood and bone and fate. I carry part of you in my veins. You carry part of me in yours. We're bound together, Minha, for better or worse. And I'm not letting you go. You can't stop me. I know, but I can jump with you. She was at the railing now, climbing up before anyone could stop her. Someone screamed. Police shouted. But Nia was beyond caring. She stood beside him on the narrow edge, the wind whipping her hair, the river rushing below. Minha stared at her in shock. What are you doing? Proving a point. If you jump, I jump. If you want to die, we die together. Blood oath, remember? I saved your life. That means it's mine. If you're going to throw it away, you'll have to throw mine away too. You're insane. Probably. Loving you has made me do insane things. Taking money to pretend to be your fiancé. Actually falling in love with you. Climbing onto a bridge in the middle of the night to stop you from killing yourself. But here we are. She held out her hand. So what's it going to be? Do we jump together or do we figure out how to live together? For a long moment, Minha just looked at her. The wind howled around them. The river waited. Soul held its breath. Then, slowly, he took her hand. I hate you, he whispered. I know. You destroyed me. I know. I don't know if I can forgive you. I know. But Minha? She squeezed his fingers. Can you try? His grip tightened. His eyes, so dead before, flickered with something fragile and dangerous. Hope. Why should I? Because you deserve better than this. Better than your father's empire. Better than the violence. Better than dying on a bridge because someone made you believe you weren't worth loving. Nia's voice broke. You deserve a life? A real one. And I want to give that to you if you'll let me. I'm a monster, Nia. I'll always be a monster. Then be my monster. Be the monster who chooses to live instead of die. Who chooses mercy instead of revenge. Who chooses me even though I don't deserve it. A police negotiator was shouting through a megaphone now, but Nia couldn't hear the words. All she could hear was Minha's ragged breathing, feel the tremor in his hand, see the war in his eyes between despair and that fragile, terrible hope. If I come down, he said finally, if I choose this, you don't get to leave. You don't get to walk away when it gets hard. You're mine, Nia. For better or worse. Blood oath. Blood oath, she agreed. They climbed down together. The moment their feet hit solid ground, police swarmed them. Paramedics, media, chaos. But Minha never let go of her hand, even when his father arrived with security. Even when Han Mirin appeared screaming threats. Even when the world tried to pull them apart. They were taken to the hospital for evaluation. Nia sat beside Minha's bed while doctors checked him over, and he kept his eyes locked on her like he was afraid she'd vanish if he looked away. I meant what I said on the bridge, he told her when they were finally alone. If you stay, you're mine. I'm not a good man, Nia. I'm possessive and violent and broken. I'll probably hurt you without meaning to. I'll definitely make your life complicated. I know. And you still want this? She thought about it. Really thought about it. About the contract that had brought them together and the lies that had almost destroyed them. About the man he'd been before the shooting and the man he was trying to become. About the danger and the passion and the terrifying intensity of loving someone like Ryu Minha. I don't want the fairy tale, she said finally. I want the truth. The messy, complicated, probably doomed truth. I want you, Minha. All of you. Even the parts that scare me. He pulled her into his arms and she felt him shaking. I don't know how to do this. how to love someone without destroying them. Then we'll learn together. The next morning, Ryu Hwan-seok came to collect his son. But for the first time in his life, Min-ha refused his father's order to return home. "I'm done," Min-ha said, standing beside Nia's hospital bed. "Done with the family business. Done being your weapon. Done destroying myself to meet your expectations. I'm choosing a different life." The dragon's face remained impassive, but Nia saw the calculation in his eyes. "And what life is that? You think you can just walk away from who you are? I think I can try. And if I fail, at least it'll be my failure. Not yours." For a moment, father and son stared at each other across an unbridgeable gulf of violence and expectation and broken dreams. Then Ryu Hwan-seok did something Nia never expected. He smiled. "You're stronger than I gave you credit for. That's good. You'll need it." He turned to leave, then paused. "The contract is void, Dr. Adesina. Keep the money. Consider it compensation for what my son will put you through." After he left, Min-ha pulled Nia close. That almost sounded like a blessing. Or a warning. Probably both. He kissed her forehead. "Are you scared?" "Terrified." "Good. That means you're paying attention." They left the hospital together that afternoon, walking into sunlight and uncertainty. Nia had no idea what came next. No idea if they could make this work, if love was enough to overcome the lies and violence and trauma that had brought them together. But as Min-ha laced his fingers through hers, their blood mixed in memory and fate. She decided it didn't matter. Some stories didn't have neat endings. Some loves were messy and complicated and probably doomed from the start. But they were real. And sometimes, real was enough. The media went crazy when news of the bridge incident broke. Photos of Nia and Min-ha climbing down together, hands clasped, became instant iconic images. The narrative shifted again. Tragic romance, near-death love, the woman who saved the Mafia heir twice. Public opinion was split between those who thought Nia was a hero and those who thought she was manipulative. Nia didn't care. She was done living for other people's stories. She returned to medicine, taking a position at a smaller clinic that didn't mind her notoriety. Min-ha, true to his word, began the painful process of extricating himself from his family's empire. It wasn't easy. There were threats. Attempts to pull him back in. His father testing whether his rebellion was real or just another phase. But Min-ha held firm. And when the pressure became too much, when the nightmares came back, and the violence in his blood threatened to overflow, Nia was there. Not as his savior. As his partner. His equal in the mess they'd created together. 3 months after the bridge, on a rainy Tuesday evening, Min-ha came home to find Nia on the couch, staring at a small plastic stick with 2 pink lines. "We need to talk," she said. He sat beside her, saw what she was holding, and went very still. "Is that... I'm pregnant." The words felt surreal. "I don't know how. We were careful, but the doctor confirmed it today. 10 weeks. Min-ha didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, slowly, he placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "A baby. Our baby. Are you angry?" "Angry?" He looked at her, and his eyes were wet. "Nia, I'm terrified. I have no idea how to be a father. I had the worst possible example. What if I hurt them? What if I turn them into what I am? Then we'll figure it out together. Just like everything else." She covered his hand with hers. "Min-ha, we don't have to do this. I'm giving you a choice. If you're not ready..." "No." His grip tightened. "No. I want this. I want you. And I want our child. And I want the life we're building even though it terrifies me. I'm just... What if I'm not enough?" "You're enough," Nia said firmly. "You've always been enough. You just have to believe it." They sat together in the quiet apartment, rain drumming against windows, 2 broken people holding on to each other and the fragile hope of new life. It wasn't the fairy tale. It wasn't the dramatic romance the media had invented. It was real and complicated and uncertain. It was theirs. 7 months later, Nia gave birth to a daughter at 3:47 a.m. Minha held her hand through every contraction, every scream, every moment of terror and joy. When the doctor placed the baby in Nia's arms, Minha touched his daughter's tiny fingers with shaking hands. "She's perfect," he whispered. "What should we name her?" Nia looked at their child, this miracle born from lies and blood and choices neither of them would have made if given the option. This proof that sometimes the worst decisions led to the most beautiful outcomes. "Amara," she said. "It means grace in Igbo, because she's our grace. Our undeserved second chance." Minha kissed Nia's forehead, then his daughter's. "Amara. Perfect." The dragon came to visit a week later. He stood over the hospital bassinet, looking at his granddaughter with an unreadable expression. "She has your eyes, Minha. That's unfortunate for her." "Get out," Minha said flatly. But Ryu Hwanseok ignored him, instead addressing Nia. "You've done what I couldn't. Made him want to live. Made him choose something other than destruction. For that, you have my respect." "I don't want your respect," Nia said, exhaustion making her bold. "I want you to leave us alone. Minha is done with your world. This baby will never know it. We're building something different." The dragon smiled his terrible smile. "We'll see. Blood will always call to blood, Dr. Adesina. But for now, enjoy your peace." He placed an envelope on the table. "A gift for my granddaughter. Use it or burn it. I don't care." After he left, Minha opened the envelope. Inside was a deed to a house in Jeju Island and a bank transfer notification for enough money to live comfortably for years. "Blood money," Minha said bitterly. "Or an apology," Nia suggested. "Take it. Use it to build our different life. Sometimes you have to use the devil's gifts to escape hell." They moved to Jeju when Amara was 3 months old. Away from Seoul's neon and violence, away from the Ryu Empire and the media circus, and the constant reminders of everything they'd survived. The house was beautiful, overlooking the ocean, full of light and possibility. Nia opened a small medical practice. Minha, surprisingly, discovered he loved carpentry, creating things with his hands instead of destroying them. They built a life one day at a time, raising their daughter in sunlight and honest conversation, teaching her that love was complicated and family was chosen, and sometimes the best gifts came wrapped in terrible circumstances. On Amara's first birthday, as they watched her destroy a cake with gleeful abandon, Minha pulled Nia close. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "The contract, the lies, everything that brought us here?" Nia thought about it. About the scared doctor she'd been, donating blood to a stranger. About the money and manipulation and the terrible choices that had led to this moment. About falling in love with a broken man on a bridge in the middle of the night. "Not for a second," she said. He kissed her, slow and deep, tasting like hope and second chances. Blood oath? Blood oath. Forever. And in the golden light of a Jeju afternoon, surrounded by the family they'd built from lies and blood and impossible choices, Nia finally understood what she'd been searching for all along. Not salvation, not perfection, just the messy, complicated truth of loving someone with your whole heart and choosing them every single day despite everything. They were bound by fate, yes, but more than that, they were bound by choice. And that made all the difference. If you loved this journey of blood, betrayal, and redemption, subscribe to see more intense romance stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Drop a comment telling us, would you have signed the contract? Would you have climbed that bridge? Hit the like button if this story made your heart race, and share it with someone who loves forbidden romance as much as you do. Your support means everything. Let's build this community together.